welcome to the verb aller. Aller means to go, but it's not just used to say I'm going to the store. It's going to be a way to open up our horizons to talk about our near future. In order to talk about the near future, we will need to talk about what is a conjugated verb versus an infinitive. Infinitive basically means it is not conjugated. So it will mean to eat, to dance, to like, to be, to have, or aller as in to go. When we conjugate it, we match it to the subject of which it's talking about. Notice ER verbs follow patterns. Irregular verbs like aller do not have exactly a pattern that is easy to follow. But let's find some patterns with these four most used French verbs. So we've already learned each of these. Let's take a look at some of the similarities. In the I form, each of these has an I. Notice how j'ai, AI, has an A sound. Je vais also has an A sound, as well as je fais. Tu vas has an A sound. So does tu as. Il va, il a. They both have that A sound, unlike A or fait. The new form has its own pattern. Just like with ER verbs, most of them end in ONS. And so does aller, avoir, and faire. Notice we're taking ALL, which is the beginning of aller, and the beginning of avoir, and just tacking on the ONS ending, as if it was a regular ER verb. Similarly, with the vous êtes form, we're doing the same thing. Now, être will not follow that pattern, nor will faire. But if we remember that avoir and aller are a little bit more similar, since they both start with an A, that might help us. The il pluriel ends in ONT for all four of our most used French verbs. This should be a little helpful. And that is pronounced vont. Other patterns to notice is that the verb avoir, most of them start with an A, except for the il pluriel. Plus, if we look at the boot of the verb avoir, we see letters that are repeated in aller. The only thing different is these all start with a V, and ve ends in an S. And of course, faire has its own, where each of these has FAI except for font. Okay, so let's talk about the uses of aller. We will often use aller and a to talk to a place that we're going to. A is a preposition meaning to or at. We can also use aller and an infinitive to create what's called the future proche. Again, this will allow us to talk about the future. So let's look at a few examples. If I say je vais au restaurant, it means I'm going to the restaurant. Je vais à la bibliothèque, I'm going to the library. Notice I need a in each of these examples. A and le combine to create o. Je vais chez moi. Chez is this great preposition. It kind of means to the place of. But if we directly translate it in English, we kind of can't because there is no equivalent. So this here, chez moi, means my place. Je vais aller à l'école means I'm going to go to the school. It does not mean I'm going right now. It means I'm going to go. So again, we're talking about the future. Similarly, je vais arriver en 2 minutes means I'm going to arrive in 2 minutes. I'm not arriving currently. So to create the future proche is really simple. It's one of the easiest things to do. We just have to conjugate the verb aller and then use an infinitive, a non-conjugated verb. Here's a few examples. Je vais prendre une douche. I'm going to take a shower. Elle va faire des courses. She's going to go shopping. Ils vont manger au restaurant. They are going to eat in a restaurant. Here's a few more examples to remind you that, again, we're going to conjugate the verb aller in any of these forms and add an infinitive. Notice how jouer, just like aller, often has an a at the end. So I'm going to play. Je vais partir, I'm going to leave. And even with pronominal verbs meaning reflexive, so je vais me lever tôt le matin, I am going to wake myself up early the morning. Notice how I don't need in the morning, just the morning. So as you notice, a lot of these, when you're using aller, a lot of the conjugations you're going to need are going to require that preposition a. But a and le and les kind of combine. So a and le will combine, will create a conjunction, and they will combine into o. A and les will do something similar, pronounced the exact same way, just spelled slightly differently. A and la, a and elle apostrophe will stay the same. Here are a few examples. Je vais au restaurant. Because restaurant is masculine, it would need le, because every normal noun needs an article. Bibliothèque is feminine. École starts with an E, a vowel. And stairs is plural. Now we're going to quickly review negation. Aller follows the same exact rules of negation as all other verbs, where the conjugated verb is the one that is wrapped around with the ne and the pas. So our conjugated verb is allons, nous n'allons pas chez moi. Je ne vais pas au restaurant. Je ne vais pas faire les lits. Notice when I'm using the future proche, I'm only wrapping that negation around the conjugated verb. And il ne va nulle part. Here I don't need a pas because nulle part means nowhere, so he isn't going anywhere. I hope that was helpful, and à la prochaine!